We are going to get started in about 2 minutes. So please go ahead, share in the chat where you are joining us from in the world today. Oh, awesome. We've got people from South Korea, Lebanon, Hanoi, Vietnam, Singapore, Mumbai, India, Connecticut. Um, okay, Eddie, help me here. Doha, Qatar. Did I say that
Yeah,
correctly?
Qatar. Yeah.
Qatar? Okay, Qatar.
Yeah.
Panama, Taiwan. Hello, welcome everyone. If you are just now joining us, please feel free to drop in the chat where you are joining us from today. We know that we have people here from all over the world, and it's so nice to get to meet you. Switzerland, Thailand, wow, Brazil,
Oh,
Indonesia.
there's somebody in Wuhan, which is where I'm at right now.
Oh, nice. That's amazing. Ohio. I'm in Indiana, so very close to you there in Ohio. Bolivia. Okay, fantastic. I see people still coming in. Please feel free to drop in the chat where you are joining us from today. I'm going to give it about 1 more minute because I see people still joining, and then we will get started. Fantastic. Another from Thailand. Japan. So we've got a pretty broad base joining us today, which is very similar to the alumni and candidates from Moreland. El Salvador, very nice. Okay, I see people still joining us. Please, if you are just joining us, drop in the chat where you're joining us from today. We're excited to find out where in the world you are located right now. Ethiopia, fantastic. Eddie, do you see the question? Where in
Yeah, I do. So I'm not exactly sure. So I'm actually visiting some friends, but it's close to Jiaoshang Park on line 2. So right there's a bunch of ritzy malls in this area. So James, if you know, if you I'm sure I have a feeling you know where that is. So yeah. Yeah, I have some friends who are working at a school over here, so it's quite a nice area. Very convenient for sure.
Oh, very nice. All right, it is 2 minutes past the top of the hour, so we're going to go ahead and jump in and get started. I do see some people still joining us. If you're joining us, please feel free to drop where you're from in the chat. We're excited to know where you're joining us from today. But we're going to go ahead and jump in. So welcome. Welcome to our webinar about international teacher salary and career growth. Whether you're considering becoming an international teacher, whether you're new to the field or you've been teaching for a few years, we hope that this session will provide you with some salary insights and strategies that you need to achieve the international teaching career that you will love. My name is Faith Burruff, and I am the curriculum manager here at Moreland University. I've been in education for some time. I was a career changer coming into education, but I have worked from everything from being the room parent to the PTO vice president to the paraprofessional, school classroom teacher, school level administrator, and district level administrator. So I've seen education from almost every vantage point, and I've been with Moreland University for about 6 years. I love what we do, and I'm excited to share this information with you. I'm going to have my colleague Eddie introduce himself.
Yeah, so I'm Eddie Johns, and I originally started my career in higher education as the student in student affairs, and later on transitioned into K through 12 as sort of a guidance counselor and director of student services, and then later on be focused more on teaching. And my K through 12 experiences are primarily in Asia, specifically in Thailand and in China. And I have been an instructor here at Moreland University for the past 3 years, and have really loved this experience. And hopefully I can share my personal insights in terms of uh, working abroad, because it's such a wonderful experience.
Thank you so much, Eddie. So before we dive into the heart of our conversation, I want to give you a quick overview of Moreland University. And I feel like I have to start with our mission. So the mission of Moreland University is teaching teachers around the world to be resourceful problem solvers and tech-savvy educators through an online, collaborative, activity-based learning system designed for tomorrow's students in a dynamic and diverse world. We do have over 10,000 graduates worldwide, and we have supported teachers in over 165 countries around the world. We are a fully accredited university with a flexible 9-month, 100% online teacher certification program and several 12 months master's degrees. We also have very affordable tuition with interest-free monthly payment plans and scholarships available for eligible candidates. Now, talking about international teaching is a big topic and can vary country to country. So please keep that in mind as we're sharing information with you. We don't have the time on this call to go in depth on every single country and teacher salaries in every country and region around the world. But what we're going to do is run through some of the high level international salary insights to help you set the stage and understand what the scope looks like around the world. And we want to help you whether you're advancing or just starting that international teaching career. So here are some salary examples on the screen here. And these are some ranges that we see. So China from about 33,000 to 53,000. France around 39,000. And you can see the different numbers on the screen. Now keep in mind, these are just salaries. And as Eddie will share a little bit later on, you have to take so many things into consideration when deciding where you want to teach in the world. And we'll get into that a little bit more here shortly. So some of the top paying countries for teachers are listed on this screen. Please note that these are the highest average teaching salaries around the world. Now, there are lots of opportunities located geographically around the world for teachers who are interested in having that international teaching experience. In the chat, if you could share which countries have you visited? Where have you taught? Give us some information about areas that you would like to hear a little bit more about. And I want you to consider both teacher salary opportunity and cost of living as you're thinking about where you might find the most success teaching internationally. Hi, I've got some questions focusing on UAE. I have heard some good things about UAE. Italy, Thailand, Vietnam. Okay, Vietnam. Very good. Thank you so much for sharing in the chat. Turkey, South Korea, Algeria. Fantastic. All right, so here are some factors that you want to take into consideration on top of teacher salary and cost of living. In addition to cost of living, you want to think about the country. Revisit which countries pay more, why they pay more, what are some of those economic factors that are happening. Cost of living and local demand definitely influence teaching salaries, no matter where you're located in the world. You want to always research the country's visa requirements. This is really important if you're planning on teaching internationally. And know that some countries offer benefits for international educators like housing, transportation, lots of different benefits. So you want to be very clear about what does that benefit package look like. Now, you want to look at different regions that are actively recruiting foreign teachers to meet the demand in specific subject areas, such as South Korean private schools or hagwons often are hiring American teachers to teach English. Is this something that appeals to you? Is this something you would like to do? And then you want to understand that having a specialized skill is going to help you negotiate that pay and potentially have a higher salary. Eddie, is there anything you'd like to add to the information on this slide?
Yeah, so I mean, I think there's a variety of different, factors that take into play. And I think, like you explained, a lot of it does depend on sort of your qualifications. So for example, if you are an educator with a lot of experience, teaching at, let's say, for example, a US public school, you know, um, for many years, you are in a high category. But if you're just first starting off, sometimes, getting your feet wet, I think there's many, many opportunities that you can go into that are still, pretty lucrative, even though maybe in terms of salary you might be a little bit more on the lower end. But each country has its own unique factors. Like for example, when I lived in Thailand, the salary wasn't particularly high, but it was very high for Thailand. And so I was able to save a lot of money and pay a lot of bills, student loan bills, etc., back in the States, even though maybe on paper it looks low, but the cost of living is so reasonable that, I was able to, manage that quite well.
Absolutely. I just want to piggyback on that. We have one participant in the chat said, they are teaching in Thailand. The pay is about 1,500 to 2,000 US dollars per month, and they can support a family of 5 and 3 dogs on that salary. So it's amazing to think about what that salary can support based on cost of living. So you can't just look at the salary number.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Absolutely.
it really depends on a lot of different things, like where the school is located. If you're located in in a city, it's going to be a little bit more expensive, of course. But, um, one of the things I think, Kevin, for example, you have a question that, Eric, can the way you look affect, whether schools will hire you? And in an ideal world, it won't. But, one of the things we have to keep in mind is that, the way that other countries operate is something that we have to take in consideration as well, because the fact of the matter is it may be a consideration and whatnot. But, if you're qualified, if you have the skills and the training, the hope is that that will surpass everything else. But, it's such a diverse world out there, which is, why it's so great to, go out there and, explore it.
Right. We're going to look at 5
Yeah.
strategies to elevate your international teaching salary.
Yeah, so we're going to take a look at the strategies to elevate international teaching strategies. So I think the first and primary thing, we kind of led on to this a little bit, is picking the right school. One of the things you have to consider is that there's so many different options out there. And, so for example, like, where do you want to live? Like, there in the chat box, there was somebody who was interested in schools in Thailand. And, one of the things that you need to do is like figure out, well, what kind of lifestyle do you want to have? For example, if you want to live in Bangkok, it is a major city and there are many international schools there. And there's different, and those international schools are looking for different people. And so different types of people. It also, like, for example, you have the inner Bangkok part, there's the outer Bangkok, then you have, the outskirts in different provinces. So it's very important that you do your research. So, sometimes it's as easy as just typing in like, international schools in Thailand. And, one of the things to keep in mind is that, if you get offered a contract, perhaps maybe the first opportunity may not be the best opportunity. You have to keep that in mind. You may need to go on search forums to figure out whether or not, the salary they're offering and the benefits they're offering are, equitable. Like join, Facebook groups to see if, what other experiences are out there. And you also want to pay attention to the job descriptions because oftentimes they list how many hours you are required to work. And some schools will require a lot of different hours. So for example, maybe a school requires you to teach 20 blocks a week. And 20 blocks a week may be okay if you're teaching, for example, a 50-minute class, but 20 blocks a week if you're teaching a 90-minute class might be a lot. And then also factor in the cost of living. So for example, there are many people who are interested in, maybe interested in teaching in Europe. But then, for example, I've had friends who have worked, for example, Spain, and the cost of living isn't particularly high, but then also the salaries are not as high compared to other places in the world who also have a similar cost of living, if not lower. So it's very important that you essentially do your research, and a lot of this can be word of mouth. There's a lot of information out there that can help. So for example, some search platforms. So for example, ISS or Schroll can be one of the ways to kind of find out more information about different schools. And one of the things is that you have to be open-minded. Yeah. So another thing, one of the things that we talk about is, factoring in the benefits and costs of living. So for example, I provided the example when I first started living in Thailand, my salary for, Thai levels was pretty decent, but like if you compared it to, for example, the salary you would get in the US, it doesn't look very high. But, one of the things is like, for example, when I started working in Thailand, you could get, breakfast, lunch for like $1. You know what I mean? The housing, I paid maybe $200 a month for housing. Transportation is really cheap. And so these are some of the things that you have to take in consideration. But oftentimes, if you get into, for example, an international school, they'll provide a housing allowance, they'll pay airfare. They'll pay health insurance. And so, these are the benefits that, kind of add up, together. So maybe your salary doesn't look particularly high, but when you add up all these factors, your take-home pay or the net of what you get is much higher than what maybe you might get in your home country. So when we're talking about what's the next school, I think a part of it is, it's important that it's not only like, a lot of times when we think of our careers, right, we think of right now. Okay. And I think, especially if you're young, you're like, I just need a job right now. But I think one of the things that you need to consider, especially if you're interested in studying abroad or I'm not studying abroad, working abroad, is that, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? Where are you in your particular career? So, for example, when I first moved to Thailand, I think a part of it was, I saw myself as, eventually becoming an administrator and, ideally, coming back to higher education as an instructor like I am now. And so when you kind of have a sort of like preview of what you want to do, essentially you can use your experiences inside to kind of help plan that. Now, some teachers they love teaching. They want to try to, get exposed to as many different countries, schools, opportunities, or locations. And I think a part of it is the more directed you are in terms of what you want to do, it allows you to be more directed in terms of visiting different schools and kind of increasing your for example, your skill set and being more available to, being more of a value to the schools that you present. So, also like, for example, what subjects do you want to teach? For example, some people are interested in teaching AP subjects. But then also like what additional degrees or professional development or certifications you might want to get. Some schools provide, they provide a package where they'll support you to go and get your next degree. Um, so So I think it's very important that like you also consider, for example, your qualifications when you're going abroad. And so now we're going to talk about earning your U.S. teaching certifications. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Faith.
Thanks, Eddie. I think it's really important to understand, I know some of you are thinking, I'm teaching internationally. I don't need my US teaching certification, and that may be true. However, just keep in mind for certain situations in certain schools and to level up your potential salary and benefits and the level of schools that you can teach in, that US teaching license is globally recognized and respected. And it can help you open more doors and have more opportunities as an international teacher. Before I go into just discussing a little bit more about the slide that you see currently, I just want to acknowledge that we do see your questions in the chat. I think that they're excellent questions, and I want to be able to go ahead and answer those live. So we will do that at the end of this presentation. Keep dropping those questions into the Q&A box and the chat, and we will get to those at the end of the presentation. So why should you get your US teaching license? Global recognition, globally respected. It will expand your opportunity. So we'll open your doors to schools that will potentially pay you more, provide better benefits. You'll have that higher earning potential, competitive edge, and increased job security. And then, of course, you will be well equipped to handle the classroom and be more successful while you're teaching. It also does open the pathway to different leadership opportunities, and that's important to take note of. So to provide another perspective on the benefits of getting that US teaching certification while abroad, we're going to just play a quick clip here from John Dickerson, who is one of Moreland's amazing admissions representatives.
US teaching license is a game changer if you're living and working internationally. You spend most of every day at work, especially as a teacher. And having a teaching license allows you to be in a more professional, better experience with better work-life balance, with things like paid holidays and the respect that you deserve as a teacher at the right school. And the thing is, a lot of those international schools, if you don't have a teaching license, they don't even want to interview you. They don't want to talk to you. A lot of those job fairs, they say, if you don't have a teaching license, don't come here. There's no job for you. Having that US teaching license is such a game changer that it's a night and day difference in your educational career.
Yeah. I would it be okay if I kind of like added on to that, Faith, just a little bit?
Absolutely. Jump
You
in,
know,
Eddie.
it really is 100% true, So, I went through the Moreland University teacher certification program, and I already had my doctorate by then. And I think it's what he's saying is quite true. Even with my doctorate, having that license is sort of like the key to getting into some of the, the international schools, because he's right. They will not look at your record unless you have a teacher's license from, for example, the United States or the United Kingdom. And, and that's the reason why I pursued the license, because even with my, advanced education, I wouldn't have um, my resume would not have been taken a look at. And I think once you get your license, it really does open the doors, not only to the opportunities, but also, so for example, the salaries and those sorts of the great benefits packages. And then once you get in there, then it really becomes, you get a lot of experience, you make a lot of networking, and then you're able to kind of like, move to different schools and explore different places. So he's 100% correct.
It's interesting, Eddie, because we have a quote here from one of our Teach Now graduates that says the same exact thing. He said, teaching certification abroad is more important than a master's degree or a PhD. That teaching certification actually gives you the closing. So like it's going to open that door and it's going to help you close that job opportunity and get in there it's really important to have that teaching certification. Now, I see so many questions in the chat about this. And again, we will get to those at the end of the program, but we will talk a little bit more about the opportunities. So for instance, certification on your timeline is something that Moreland University specializes in. As long as you already have a bachelor's degree, we have a program that's only 9 months long. You can complete it 100% from anywhere in the world, not having to come back to the US for any part of this program. And you can do it in 36 weeks or 9 months and get that teaching license. So it's very affordable. We have an option to add on MEDs with just 3 additional months in 6 different high needs areas. And it's a global cohort model. So you'll come together in a Zoom meeting with about 15 people for 1 hour every week. Other than that, you get to do the work at a time that's convenient for you. And that's important. As an international university, we're very sensitive to making sure that we have created a program that you can do on your time, that's going to work for you as you're teaching and raising a family. And you've got so much going on in your life, but it's going to help equip you to be more successful in the classroom. All right, Eddie, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about specializing in those high demand subjects.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do want to say, just to emphasize, we see all the questions that are inside of the chat. We're definitely going to try to get to all of them towards the end here after we get through the information. So, so I think the next strategy we're going to talk about is boosting your international teaching salary is to specialize in high demand subjects. So, for example, it's important to specialize because there are certain subject areas that are in high demand, and also potentially allow you to receive a higher earning potential and provide opportunities for career advancement and global mobility, as well as more job security. So, for example, math and science are often one of the and STEM subjects are often one of the areas that are in dire need. That's not to say any of the other subjects aren't, but oftentimes, for example, at my international school, it was very difficult to find a qualified math teacher. When I was working in Thailand, that was able to that had the teacher certification and that was able to that had the teaching experience that was necessary for a particular school. And so, part of what of course, I have my degree in psychology, for example. So, my bachelor's degree in psychology. So it was, so, sometimes psychology, for example, is more of something that you teach for, high school students. But, I use that qualification to become, like, for example, a guidance counselor. Guidance counselors still need teaching certificates, for example, in order to teach there. So, I think a part of it is once you know what once you identify what your specialization is and what you want to focus on, you're able to go in that particular direction. But there are opportunities to, get more, for example, qualifications. I have a friend, for example, who has a history degree, and he felt, well, I'm going to become a math teacher because there are more opportunities to do that. And so what he did is he took extra math classes and then got his math qualification. So there's always opportunities to kind of, level up per se. And so now he can teach both math and history, in school. So
I want to jump in and add one quick note on what you just said, Eddie. Once you get your teaching license, you can, through taking the different exams, taking extra classes, you can add on endorsement areas like Eddie just explained for his friend to make sure that you are more well-rounded and that you have that better opportunity and better earning potential. So it's very exciting. All right, Eddie, go ahead.
yeah. And when I was teaching clinicals last year, there was one candidate who, she was really disappointed because she felt like she needed to get her certification in elementary school, even though she really wanted to be a business teacher. But I think she later on found out, like, for example, in Washington, D.C., you can get your certification in one particular area and then apply, like you said, for for an endorsement. What you need to do, for example, and what she needed to do is take an additional test, and then that was added on to her qualification. So I love that, there's a lot of this flexibility, in terms of, the opportunities. So I think so I kind of talked a little bit about this. So for example, some, high need subjects again are, for example, STEM areas. So science, technology, engineering and mathematics, special education. One of the things that is, increasing, all over the world are special education teachers. For example, in the US, there's a federal mandate that, if you are receiving federal funding, you need to provide special education services at your school. But it is a emerging sort of emerging market abroad because many countries don't have sort of like these mandates putting forward. And so I wouldn't be surprised if the increase of special education teachers increases. Bilingual education, teaching English as a foreign language is also another area, especially since there are many new international schools that are opening all over the world, for example, in China, and they're often trying to look for teachers who teach English as a foreign language, in addition to all the other subject areas. But I think one of the things is to always do your research in terms of what the schools and things are looking for. So in this next slide here, one of the things is, for example, this slide kind of demonstrates what if you are, for example, a fresh graduate, you do not have like, for example, your teaching certificate or your license. And let's say, for example, you want to go to a country and, teach English, for example. So maybe you get your TEFL certificate, which is teaching English as a foreign language. And maybe you're working at a Hagwon, which is sort of like a support school, an academy outside of regular school. This is sort of the range of salaries that you could expect if you are just are fresh off the plane and you kind of go and you want to teach English. So for example, Vietnam, you might expect to get paid $18,000 to $24,000 a year. But one of the things to consider, like we said, is like, for example, Vietnam, the cost of living is extremely low there. So, this is quite a high salary, for living in Vietnam. And oftentimes, the academies themselves may pay for your flight, your housing. And, these range, like, for example, in the Arab Gulf states, $24,000 to $60,000. But one thing to keep in mind, as we're progressing, the more you have with your qualifications, like, for example, your teacher's license, this increases significantly because having that license is kind of like the gold standard of working at any school, at an international school. It's the key, essentially. So on the next slide, you will give you sort of like an example, and we researched this, for example, online. So, there's an international school in Shanghai called Shanghai Community International School. And, in their international school teacher benefits, for example, the starting salary is $61,000 a year, if you have 3 years experience. So you do need to have that professional experience before you can apply for this particular school, because this is a pretty competitive international school, so maybe one of the higher schools. And this is one thing to keep in mind. So, for example, if you're starting off, you may not get sort of like the high end of the salaries until you have sort of like that experience, the work experience. Some international schools are looking for certain things. Some international schools, they recruit specifically for teachers that are from their home country, for example, the US or the UK. And so you got to keep that in mind, essentially. But once you get in there, then it really opens up the doors. But, some of these more higher tier international schools, they have employer benefits that pay the host country's taxes. They provide housing for the first year. And, for example, when I worked in China, my housing was completely paid for. I had a 2-bedroom apartment that was quite large, and for example, it was completely free. So I didn't have to pay for rent. And so all of the salary that I was getting was just to, to pay bills and to save money and, to save and things like that. And so at one point, I was sending money home to my spouse in Thailand to pay for all of our bills, because I had a lot of income left over. So, housing is a really big thing if a school is paying for that, excellent. Oftentimes they usually pay for healthcare. There's an annual fare allowance, and also employer paid retirement and personal savings accounts. So, part of this is once you get your foot in the door and you gain that experience, then it opens up the doors for even better schools who may have better compensation packages. But remember, you still have to be an excellent teacher. You still have to do all of these different things. You got to, maintain a good, a good reputation at your school as well. So remember, just having the qualification doesn't automatically get you there. You still need to work hard. You still need to put all of the effort into there to make it happen.
Thank you so much, Eddie. We're going
yeah.
to talk a little bit about earning a master's degree. That is our fourth strategy that we would like to recommend to you. So, like with getting a U.S. teaching license, there are multiple benefits to earning a master's degree when it comes to growing your career and salary in education. Teachers with a master's degree often earn significantly more than those with a bachelor's degree. Now, keep in mind, having the U.S. teaching license and a master's degree is definitely going to increase your potential salary. MED graduates qualify for higher tier teaching and administrative roles, and having a master's degree can advance your education and improve your teaching quality. Like Eddie said, it's not just about a qualification on paper. You have to actually be a good, highly qualified teacher in the classroom. You want to have those skills so that you can earn that great reputation in the international schools. So we have a clip here from one of our graduates to talk about the benefits of earning a master's degree.
I'm going to tell y'all the real reasons why I got my master's degree with Moreland University. To start with reason number one, I'm going to be real honest with you guys. Getting a master's degree was just never in my plans. I'm a first generation Latina. I also was the first in my family to graduate. And so I just never thought I could have a master's degree. Now I'm also the first in my family to graduate with a master's degree, and I'm very proud of that. So after I got my teaching license with Moreland, they also gave me the option to get my master's degree, and the price was so affordable. It was so doable and accessible for me. So I honestly took advantage of the opportunity and just said, why not? Let's do it. The second reason why was because I knew the industry that I was going in was going to be very competitive. I'm an international teacher in South Korea, which is one of the most competitive industries in the world when it comes to being an international teacher. So I knew I was going to need that competitive edge. It did set my resume apart from the others. Master's degree is only going to help you. It is never going to hurt you. The third reason why was because I really wanted to start off my career with every single tool that I could. I wanted to be as well prepared as possible, especially as I embarked on my new journey as an international teacher for the first time. So getting my master's degree, specifically in globalization education, really well prepared me for my new career as an international teacher.
That was a clip from Kara Anderson, and she did go through Moreland's Teach Now Teacher Preparation Certificate program and then added on that master's degree after she had become a licensed teacher, which is what many of our candidates choose to do. So if you're considering a master's degree, I hope that you'll take a look at Moreland's 12-month, 100% online master's degree programs. Our MED program in particular includes the possibility to get that teaching credential and can be completed 100% online from anywhere in the world. So I just want to go over a little bit about the master's degree options that we have here at Moreland. We, first of all, have rolling admissions and multiple start dates a year. So you can potentially start this program just about any month, and you can specialize in some of those high needs areas we talked about: special education, early childhood education, teaching multilingual learners, which is huge for our global audience. Globalization in education is all about international mindedness and curricula and meeting the needs and understanding the cultures internationally. Educational technology, which really boomed after the whole COVID pandemic, but is still ever evolving, or educational research. So these are 6 different master's degrees that include the teacher preparation pathway. So let me be very clear, in just 1 year, for $14,000, you can get your teaching license and your master's degree. All right.
And so last but not least, thanks so much, Faith. I think one of the things that we want to, also remember is to, embrace new opportunities. And I think that's one of the reasons why you folks are all here today, is because you folks are looking for, new adventures, new opportunities to kind of like spread your wings and, expand here. So with that said, I think one of the things that I was always looking forward to is sort of like taking on leadership roles. So for example, I'm recently taking on some leadership roles here at Moreland. And I think like in my international schools, I'm always looking for opportunities because that's just the type of person I like to build things essentially. So, when we think about taking on leadership roles, I think part of the important thing is to first get that on the grounds experience. So for example, oftentimes, if you want to become a principal or an administrator, you must be in the classroom. You must be able to kind of like have effective teaching inside of the classroom. And once you sort of determine, are able to kind of prove that, then you are able to, move on up. Maybe you become a department chair, and then later on you kind of become an instructional coach. Or if the administration sees a lot of leadership potential in you, you might be asked to step in as a sort of a VP role, a vice principal role, or assistant principal role. And so I think one of the things that you have to think of, and we talked about this earlier, is, where do you see yourself? Do you see yourself as an administrator? And one thing to keep in mind is that if administrators have a lot of responsibility and are able to, are focused on growing the institution and making it better. But also remember that with a lot of responsibility also comes with an increase in salary as well. And, the opportunities become even bigger, so if you have that set in mind and you like to, do that, I think, you do have to start, at the teaching part first, and then you work your way up essentially. But, many teachers are able to kind of combine these roles together. Like, for example, for me, in all my different, capacities, I always looked for opportunities. And so if you're the type of person that likes to do that, then I think, having, for example, your master's and then just seeking different seeking opportunities to, start new programs, things that you're interested in. It doesn't necessarily have to be things that are assigned to you, things that you're interested in, you ask for approvals and things like that. Then, and you make it happen, then, you're gonna be seen by your administrators, and they're going to kind of want to take you under their wing essentially. So you have to, keep these things in mind. And I just encourage you, to think of these things, and they can be designed to help your students to make your school a better place. Or, sometimes it can just be something fun to do, for yourself. And, you never know, like in terms of creating, if you like to read books, maybe having a book fair or something like that, creating something fun for yourself as well. Um, so I think, we have a statement here, lead with the masters from Moreland. So for example, if you are interested in, let's say, for example, you already have your certification, but you don't have a master, or you don't have that higher education degree. To get into the administrative roles, you do often need to have that master's degree. And in our program, we have 2 different options. So you can still continue with, for example, our other master's in education degrees as well that come with the certification. But we also have standalone programs, including the master's in educational leadership, which is also 12 months. It's 100% online, global cohort, affordable tuition, multiple start dates, and no GRE is required, as well as the master's in globalization and educational research, which is also 12 to 15 hours weekly commitment, 100% online. And again, affordable tuition and payment plans, multiple start dates each year. So I believe that the Master's in Educational Leadership program is really, there's a lot of content inside of it in terms of like, there are certain aspects. For example, you learn about different parts of the administration, like budgets, report writing, risk management. And then the Masters of Globalization and Educational Research is a great program if you're interested in doing more of a research track, or you want to create a program of improvement for your school. So I've had candidates in the Masters in Globalization and Educational Research, and they created their own thesis. They created a study, and according to something that was very interesting and driving for them. So for this program, we really put it in your hands to research something you're interested in, something you can sink your teeth into. And we just mentor you into making that, accomplishing that. And so I think one of the things that I just encourage everybody to consider, whether or not you want to study, you want to teach abroad, whether you want to increase your teaching strategy, it is all about growing outside of the classroom. So for example, any experiences, like for example, if you consult outside, volunteer or work with community groups, do training roles, apply for conferences. Those can be really valuable experiences that can help you network and help you see different opportunities that are available. Even extracurricular advisory roles, sign up to be a coach for, your school. Oftentimes athletics have a lot of connections to the community, or especially, for example, if you work at a international school in a different country, that's going to make you connected to the parents, you know what I mean? And they can you would be able to have that network there. You can also become a content creator or influencer. Nowadays, we have so much social media. We have so many people who are, posting on TikTok and Facebook. It's such an exciting time. We just encourage you to drive that. There's a lot of teacher, postings online where they kind of like do not webinars, but sort of like podcasts, or they do TikTok videos that kind of like are funny things about teachers, but it kind of shows that we're not alone, and it adds the network there. Could be a potential career jump off, essentially. But also, look into reputable referral programs such as Moreland's referral program as well. So, there's different ways that we can also assist with you increasing your opportunities outside of the classroom.
Thank you so much, Eddie. All right, with that, we have come to the Q&A section of our presentation, and I will tell you there's no shortage of questions. So I do see about 5 questions in the Q&A box, and I would say about 50 million in the chat. No, just kind of exaggerating there, but we're going to do our best to get to as many of those as we can. I do want to address one that I saw come through the chat, from a Moreland Teach Now graduate. They said, hey, it's been about a year since I completed the program. Can I come back and add on that master's degree? Absolutely. There's no time limit to when you can come back and add on one of those 6 master's degrees that includes that teacher preparation pathway. So if you've already done that teacher preparation portion and you want to add on in either early childhood education, special education, teaching multilingual learners, globalization in education, educational technology, or education research, you can do that at any time. Just go back to our website and start that application. I also saw another question from a Moreland graduate about if I've already completed the Teach Now program and the Master's in Early Childhood Education, can I do another Master's? You could come back and do either the Master's in Educational Leadership or the Master's in Globalization and Education Research. We have an amazing resource here for you. If you're considering a career in international teaching or looking to grow your career in education, one resource you will find very useful is our guide to teacher salaries and career growth. Not only does it tell you which countries pay teachers the most on average, but it also gives you other professional and personal ideas to consider, including how you can even earn more and what factors to look at beyond that base salary. So we discussed some of that today, but we have a wonderful guide here that you can request and be able to have that information at your fingertips. So Eddie, let's jump into the Q&A here. And I believe we've already answered the first question. How much does the MED online course cost? It is $14,000 US for the full MED program. You mentioned specialized skills to help you negotiate. Could you elaborate on the sorts of skills that are most sought after in this context? Eddie, can you elaborate on what specialized skills you feel based on your international teaching experience are most sought after?
Can you repeat the question just one more time? I'm just trying
Which
to,
specialized skills are international schools looking for the most? I know like here in the US, having that MED in special education can almost guarantee a job. Like if you've got your teaching license and you've got your MED in special education, it is a highly sought after, high need field. What do you think about internationally, Eddie?
So, as it pertains, as I can kind of understand, international schools, or at least what, they're all pretty unique. And I think the first thing you need to do is to kind of research the school and figure out what is sort of like their mission and what they're looking for. Especially sort of like the really elite international schools, they are looking for a certain type of teacher. And so when it comes to specialized skills, it really depends on, the fit that the school wants for the particular teacher. So, let me think. So like for example, at my international school, we were an international demonstration school inside of Thailand, and so part of it is we wanted a teacher that was not afraid of getting their hands dirty in terms of like building up the school, because we needed to build it together, and so that required a lot of time for people to work, to work outside of hours and things like that. And so, oftentimes we recruited people who knew what they were getting into. Oftentimes they were a lot younger. They were kind of like beginning people, because they were being trained on how to do certain things by people who had a lot of expertise. But then you have other international schools who are very established, and they may be looking for somebody who's really qualified, that is at the top of their game, essentially, in terms of teaching. And so, when it comes to specialized skills, I think a part of it is it really depends on the international school and what they're looking for. But you also have to consider, like, some international schools are picky and some other international schools are not picky. And so, I think some of the best ways is to, see if you can get a connection in there, to see if you can kind of talk to them about it, to see what they think about the institution. You can also, for example, visit, a lot of times the international schools have fairs where, they do interview fairs. So you may want to look up to see if there's any interview fairs, just to kind of learn about different international schools as well, see what their fit is, how you fit in. Because remember, I can assure you 100%, if you do not fit with the school, like in your, who you are as a person, you may think you want to work at this, brilliant international school, but they may be looking for a certain person. And so if you try to change yourself to fit that, and that's not who you are, you may not be very happy there. And they may not
Absolutely.
be very happy with you. You know what I mean? So you want to find that good fit.
Eddie, I know you mentioned job fairs, like international school fairs, and that's really important. I will say ISS, International School Services, has some amazing job fairs twice a year. They have them additionally in other countries. Moreland has multiple international partners, and we can definitely connect you with a list of those job fairs if you reach out to us. I also had a question just to kind of go a little deeper and explain, if you come back after you've completed the certification program, which was 36 weeks, and you want to add on one of those 6 master's degree areas, it's an additional 16 weeks. So the 36 weeks of the certification program plus that additional 16 weeks equals the 1 year. So if you have already completed Moreland's Teach Now Teacher Preparation Certificate program, you can come back and add on that master's degree in just 16 weeks, because we will accept all 24 transfer credits from that initial teacher preparation program. So it really accelerates that master's degree for you. Let's see. Someone said, can you earn more than a master's? Well, Moreland University at this time does offer the certification program and the master's programs. At this time, we do not offer anything beyond that. However, that's always a possibility in the future. So please continue to check back with us. Now, Eddie, could you answer this question? It says, would many years of ESL teaching experience meet the requirements of experience at an international school?
That's actually a really good question. And to be honest, it really depends. I think there's some international schools where the answer to that question might be no. They may not be looking for a teacher with the ESL experience to maybe looking for a teacher with the specific subject experience. Now, with that said, many ESL schools, you may be teaching, for example, like AP English, and that is, for example, a very specific subject area. So I think a part of it is, depends on what that experience is. So for example, if you can kind of sort of drive your career into the direction where it's not only you're teaching ESL, but you're also teaching maybe a particular subject area, then that's one way that I would suggest doing it.
I see a question in here. Thank you so much for that, Eddie. Asking how can you register for this teaching certificate? So to register at Moreland University and complete our 100% free application, you can use the QR code that you see on the screen here, or go to moreland.edu. If you go to moreland.edu, there is going to be a button in the upper right-hand corner of your screen that says Apply Now. And you can choose between our 9-month Teach Now Teacher Preparation Certificate program. If you have already completed that, you can choose our master's degree add-on. Or if you would like to say, I'm just going to go all in and in 1 year complete both, you can choose our full master's degree programs. Once you click on that box, you will get to choose the specific program. The application is free. It will take you no more than 10 to 15 minutes to complete, and one of our admissions representatives will reach out to you right away. Now, I do have a question in the chat about how do I complete my clinical practice if I'm not currently working at a school? We do have a clinical placement coordinator that will work with you no matter where you're located in the world to help you find that clinical placement. So please do not let that deter you from joining the program. I do believe that ISS does offer a 1 year access to their job board for all Moreland candidates and graduates. So that is something that, yes, I do believe we still offer that. Please reach out to us and we can get you that link if you're a candidate or graduate. Eddie, this is a good question. Any advice that we have for issues in countries that say that the bachelor's degree must be in the subject that they are going to teach? So for instance, if they want to teach social studies, they're requiring that that bachelor's degree was in social studies.
Let's see. So you have a QTS. So I'm not entirely, sure about, like, for example, the British system, but I think if I'm not mistaken, QTS is the equivalent to the teacher license in the US. So I have my US license in the subject that I teach, and I have a QTS, but my bachelor's degree is not in the subject. What can I do? So to me, I think that if you have your license in your in that particular subject area, even if you don't have a bachelor's degree in that subject area, I don't think, well, most of the time that shouldn't matter. But again, this is where it depends on the international school, or the international school or the school that you're applying to. Like for some schools, you need to have both. Some schools you don't. But it also depends on your professional experience. So sometimes professional experience definitely trumps the, not having the bachelor's degree. So, if you have, let's say, for example, 5 or 10 years, like teaching this particular subject area, and you have a license in that subject area, you should be able to be qualified to go, into another school, to any school essentially. But it really depends on the institution itself. So, what I might recommend is contacting the institution, or maybe not contacting the institution, but see if you can find somebody at the institution who may know how they do their hiring practices to see, what they think about it, because sometimes they're very clear.
Absolutely. That's a great answer. Now, I have a question about the salary range for a teacher in America graduating from Moreland Teach Now program with 3 years experience and a master's degree abroad. Alex, I know that our wonderful marketing team has put together a US teacher salary guide as well, correct?
Yes, the salary
Okay.
guide that we talked about earlier actually has information both for international teachers and aspiring teachers, as well as aspiring and current US teachers.
Perfect. So within that salary guide that we showed earlier and that you can access, please note that that will show it varies a lot from state to state. But I will say within the US, the cost of living also varies a lot from state to state. So again, even if you're wanting to come back to the States to teach, do your homework. Don't just look at teacher salary. You may see a really high teacher salary and say, I want to be there, but you may also pay $15 for a gallon of milk there. So just make sure that you're aware of cost of living as well.
Yeah. I think the anonymous one regarding the websites that show job
Mhm.
listings. So we have talked about it, the ISS.
Yes.
You know, I think there's many different sites. I think if you do a little bit of a search, ISS is the one that I've used and I'm familiar with. You know, I've got contacted by people like headhunters there. So, you know, so I recommend doing a search, talking to colleagues as well.
I will tell you, we have some amazing partners here at Moreland. American Chinese Educational Exchange is one. They are phenomenal. If you're looking to get that job in China, Search Associates is phenomenal. ISS is phenomenal. IES is phenomenal. And Teaching Nomad is phenomenal. So those are just a few that you can search out that have amazing job boards. They also have some placement services available, and there may be a small fee to join, but it's well worth the services that you're going to get from those international partners.
Yeah.
All right, I know we're coming up on the top of the hour. If you do need to leave, please do not feel like you have to stick around. We are going to make sure that we get this slide presentation out, and you'll be getting some follow-up contact from us. I do see a hand raised here. So Razan, I'm going to allow you to talk. Please feel free to ask your question. Go ahead and unmute. Razan, would you like to unmute and ask your question? Okay, sometimes there are some technical difficulties, no worries. Diego Rodriguez, let's see, would you like to unmute and ask a question? I see your hand up. Please feel free to unmute.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, yes. So I would like to ask if my bachelor degree is in civil engineering and then I have a diploma in music. I've been teaching in an American international school for over 5 years now. And I would like to ask if I can be specialized both in music and math.
So what you would do if you were to come through the Moreland program, you would choose one area. So I would say I would choose math and get my
Okay.
certification in math, and then you could do an endorsement in music. So that way your
Okay.
teaching license would show both.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Okay, let's see. I'm going to attempt. Happy Mazavuko. Please feel free to go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I did ask a question. I think you didn't see it. So I am currently doing my 9 months teacher program with Moreland, and I'm working in a kindergarten, but I want to actually be licensed in elementary. So I want to know if I get another job, for example, in a primary school, do I need to do the process all over again?
Where are you at in your 9-month program right now? What module are you in?
I'm currently on module 4. Oh, I
Okay.
just finished module 4. I'm starting module 5 this week.
Okay. No, I believe I would reach out to your program advisor because they'll be able to direct you more clearly. But I believe if you get that job in the area, the elementary area, as long as you can do all of your clinical teaching practice in that setting, then you can seek the licensure in that elementary area. So please just reach out to your program advisor and they can help you
Okay.
facilitate that.
Okay, thank you.
You are most welcome. And that is another benefit of Moreland that I didn't even mention. You have a dedicated program advisor to walk with you through the entire program, to answer questions. So on top of your instructor, on top of your peers, you do have that dedicated program advisor. So it's always nice. All right, let's see. Are there additional requirements to enroll in the master's program? So Moreland University's enrollment requirements, you must have a bachelor's degree. And if it was obtained outside of the US, we will have you get a degree equivalency evaluation. Now, I want to strongly urge you not to attempt to get that on your own because A, it's not free, and B, there are so many different organizations, and we need a very specific course by course degree evaluation with a GPA. Also, some of these agencies it's a 3-month wait right now. Some of them you can get your results in about 3 days. So let our admissions team, free of charge, take a look at your unofficial transcripts and recommend which agency to go to. It will save you time and money. So once you have your government issued photo ID and you have that verified bachelor's degree, that's what we need to get you in the program. Now, we do require 3.0 GPA on that bachelor's degree, but don't let that deter you because there are exceptions. We can work with you through additional documentation to still help you get admitted into the program. I have a year of master's. Can I transfer? Unfortunately, Moreland's degree is an accelerated all-inclusive degree. And at this time, we do not accept transfer credits. However, you can still get that teaching license and full master's degree within 52 weeks or 1 calendar year. Trying to get through these questions again. I know we are past the top of the hour, friends. So if you need to go, feel free. But Eddie and I are going to try to answer as many questions as we can here. How
Yeah,
and
I'm typing in some
when?
answers.
Yeah, okay. I'm just going to hit this one right here. How and when can you register? Use this QR code. You can apply for our program anytime, and you can start the program any month of the year. Eddie, you want to jump in?
Yeah, so just to double check, because I see, I think we already, did we talk to Dialgo Rodriguez already
Yes.
for the question? Yeah, okay. Right. Let's see. Maybe you can pick a question. I'm not sure where we are in the questions because there
Okay,
was,
I was just in the Q&A box. Let's see. Can you give me more details about STEM? So STEM is science, technology, engineering, and math. So this is a key area that a lot of schools are looking for, both domestically and internationally. There's also STEAM, which is science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. So you can pick those areas within there that you are excited about and qualified to teach, and really focus there as you're teaching. And we did already answer this question. I want to make sure we get through these. Eddie, do you have any tips for looking for Mandarin teaching positions?
Mandarin teaching positions. So with Mandarin, oftentimes I think, for example, I've had a lot of teacher candidates who have received positions in the US actually for Mandarin teachers. So I think there is, I think, somewhat of a need for certain places in the US. So if you're interested in that, I think it depends on the different states though. We can potentially look into it, and if I can potentially ask some of my previous candidates what their experiences are. But I know that, for example, I have there are a lot of international schools that are also looking for Mandarin teachers as well. So I think you can also apply in the same way that, for example, like using the ISS or Social Search Associates in terms of applying for positions that are Mandarin teacher
Okay.
positions.
Absolutely. And I had somebody say, can you repeat that list of job boards and things available? I just dropped a link in the chat, moreland.edu/partners. So that moreland.edu about Moreland Partners, that has a list of all of our international partners. So there are so many there available. Please feel free to check them out. We are very proud to partner with them. Let me go ahead and click this one off. Okay, so there's a question about pursuing a doctorate after getting a Moreland master's. I will tell you, here in the US, every school gets to choose whether or not they accept master's degree from a different university or not. And I will tell you, I have seen Moreland graduates go on to get doctorates. I've seen some schools will accept and some schools will not, but that is true from any degree that you get here in the US. Eddie, do you want to elaborate on that? Do you have any further
Yeah,
experience?
and and as far as I understand, the only reason I mean, I think it depends, but I would imagine the only reason why they wouldn't, well, so first of all, so it depends on the doctoral program
Mhm.
and in terms of what you're applying for. So for example, if you get your master's in education and you're applying for a doctorate in education, you know, I don't, I have never seen a situation where that, getting having a master's degree is going to count towards that anyways. But I think, in terms of getting your doctorate, it depends. Like there are many different types of doctorate. For example, if you get an EDD, that's programs, which is more of a practical degree, a lot of programs, accept. But if like, for example, if you're planning on getting a PhD from a very selective university, I'm pretty sure that getting a Moreland University master's degree is going to be just as good as any other master's degree. What they're going to be trying to identify is, for example, are you a serious person that's interested in research, for example, because a lot of selective PhD programs focus on research, and therefore when you apply, you need to make sure that you are showing that you are somebody who is interested in research. And so, having the degree would probably help, but having, for example, a lot of professional experience, let's say, for example, you do a lot of action research or you do a lot of work in the community. A lot of times they take a look at the professional experience a lot more than just the master's degree.
Yes.
Because you can have a master's degree and you can get your PhD without even having a master's degree. So for example, my spouse went straight from bachelor's to PhD, for example. But the program, it depends on how competitive the program is, because oftentimes PhD programs, the competitive programs, they provide the funding. But so I don't think, from my experience, it's a master's degree is a master's degree, essentially. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, as long as it's accredited, and that's what you want to look for. So
Yeah. And
Moreland University is fully accredited. I would
yeah.
say if you're looking at other universities, definitely make sure that they are accredited because that's going to hold more weight. Quick question in the chat. Can I do clinical practice virtually online if I'm unable to find a placement? Our clinical placement coordinator does work with both brick and mortar, which is in person, and online clinical placements. So certainly that is an option that we do offer if needed. Now, Alex and Eddie, I know that we are already 10 minutes past the top of the hour. Questions are continuing to pour in. I wonder if maybe we can take all of these questions and provide an answer, an FAQ answer document to send out to all of the participants so that we make sure everybody gets the answers they're looking for. Does that sound like a plan?
I think we can do that. Yeah, we can organize the questions. Maybe we can, or record a quick video or transcript to sort of like answer all the questions. I think that's
Absolutely.
definitely something that we can do. Yeah.
Yes, because we definitely want to make sure we get you the answers to these questions.
Yeah. So I
Also
believe
am
is this
dropping,
something that we can?
yes, absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and drop my email in the chat. Please feel free to email me personally with any additional questions as well. And if I don't have the answer, I will direct it to someone who does. But yes, we will pull together the rest of these questions. We will get them out to you, and just thank you all so much for being such an engaged audience and for your input in this webinar.
Yeah, absolutely. And we just encourage you, especially going abroad, going abroad for education, there's nothing like it. And I just, I went abroad and I have not looked back. It really has expanded my horizons. It's really helped me to become not only a better educator, but a better person, a better, understanding of the world, because it's just, everything's so diverse. I've been able to make so many beautiful and wonderful connections from people all over the world. And, you know, I just encourage all of you folks to, to go for it. You know what I mean? Just, make it happen and, just go for it. It's going to be, you're not going to regret it.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much. We are so grateful for your presence today, and we hope that you have a wonderful day or evening or a good night's sleep, depending on where you're at in the world. Thank you all.